Hey everyone, it's Tyler, the Antenna Man. Last week I spoke at the Texas Association of Broadcasters show in Round Rock, Texas, about the importance of TV stations reaching antenna viewers. A little background on the organization that ran the show, the Texas Association of Broadcasters. Their mission is to advance the Texas radio and television industry's public policy interests before state and federal officials and to support stations in their service to local communities. Membership is open to stations, companies working in allied fields, media students and educators, individuals working at non-member stations, and retired broadcasters. If you fit one of these categories in Texas, be sure to visit tab.org to learn how you can become a member or attend the convention. A huge thanks to David Osmo and Oscar Rodriguez for inviting me. In my presentation, I made the point that more needs to be done to help antenna viewers better pick up a TV station's broadcast signal through information on the station's website and improvement in the broadcast signal itself. I also spoke about how more robust PLPs on ATSC 3.0 can help a TV station reach more viewers, but that the problems with DRM encryption have to be addressed and resolved first. Without further ado, here's the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get our next session started here. I'm David Osmo. Good afternoon. I'm a Regional Engineering Director for the Sinclair Broadcast Group, and I'm very excited to have Tyler Kleinley with us today. I'm a big fan of his YouTube videos, and he runs the YouTube channel Antenna Man, which provides videos about antenna reviews, reception tips, information about free over-the-air TV. And with a background in video production, those skills helped him create a successful YouTube channel that's literally helped millions of people across the country cut the cord and hit the antenna. This presentation will dig into the current state of free over-the-air TV with some of the challenges consumers face when setting up the antenna and how your TV station can help. One of the things as broadcasters that we oftentimes we sometimes do a very poor job with, and that's reaching out to the consumers to let them know that we still offer a free over-the-air signal. My daughter lives here in Austin, and I went down to Best Buy and bought a little $15 antenna and put it up on the wall of her apartment here. And we have perfect reception of every channel in town on her TV, and she was just blown away. Even though her dad works for a television station, she was still blown away that all of these channels were out there for free. And I think Antenna Man can help give us some insight as to how we can reach the public and inform them about what we're all about. Tyler, it's all yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyler. I run the YouTube channel Antenna Man. A little bit about me. I was a TV antenna hobbyist since the age of 5, and I experimented with antennas growing up. So while my friends and relatives were playing video games, I was buying TVs at thrift stores, playing around with the antennas, and literally trying to get any TV station I could, because my dad moved behind a mountain when I was 7 years old and got my first TV. We went from getting great reception on the top of Pocono Summit to living in a deep hole where you could barely get anything. And that was a challenge for me, but I spent years playing around and figuring out. In college, I actually studied film and video. I didn't have any intention on doing anything with free over-the-air TV. I wanted to do something either with broadcasting or sports video production. I started in broadcasting, had a few internships, and then decided to do sports video production because it was a lot more fast-paced, a lot more interesting, to say the least, in terms of a sports fan, stuff like that. And after college, I started installing antennas for extra income. I felt bad for a lot of older individuals on fixed incomes who weren't able to afford cable and satellite and were scrapping their funds just to pay. And I felt bad. I was like, well, don't they know that if you get an antenna, you can get all these channels free over the air? So I set up a few of them in State College, and then I moved to Bethlehem, and I was surrounded by 4 different TV markets. So I would travel to Philly, Scranton, Harrisburg, even the New York market, setting up these antennas for people. And as a result, I combined my antenna hobby and video production skills to create the Antenna Man YouTube channel, which is something that I thought was going to be a side hobby. it ended up becoming my full-time job, which is great. So here are a few pictures of me installing antennas on the roof. I've been on plenty of them. Obviously on the left, if those of you who are tech-minded know that's a UHF only antenna. I happen to live in a UHF only market, which was great because that's where the best signals are. And then it went to the opposite, the Philadelphia market that has that pesky 6 ABC that is just so hard to pick up. Had to get a long antenna element about 6 feet wide to get it. So a little bit about my YouTube channel. I've been operating it full-time for over 5 years. Has over 300,000 subscribers currently. Reaches between 500,000 to 800,000 people every month. Videos include antenna reviews, reception tips, and news about free over-the-air TV. So I keep my antenna viewers informed about what's going on. Things whenever like the FCC repack took place, I give them updates about markets that had to rescan. A lot of stations converted to MPEG-4 when ATSC3 launched, so I give them information on that, and also ATSC3 as a whole. I also directly help people cut the cord with my antenna recommendation service. So for a small fee, I look up their address, run a reception report, take a look at the frequencies, the signal path diagram, and tell them exactly what antenna will work because I've experienced testing about 100 different antennas, installing them in 4 different TV markets. I can look at a reception report and tell exactly what's going to work for my viewers. As a result, I've helped millions of people successfully cut the cord with an antenna. That's based off, the fact that my YouTube channel reaches between 500,000 to 800,000 people a month, and consistently more and more people find my channel. So it's great to know that as a result, millions of people that otherwise would have paid hundreds of dollars for cable and satellite can save over $1,000 a year and also stay in touch with their local channels. A few videos, just quick examples of the top videos I have. Running a channel scan, a mistake people make having it in cable mode. 5 antennas to avoid, the top 3 outdoor antennas. What's the best outdoor antenna? Little tip, there is no one antenna that's the best. So a lot of people get mad watching this video like, oh, you didn't tell us what the best antenna was. I'm like, it's not, there is no one that's the best. So the antenna is making a comeback, and I'm very happy about this because when I started the YouTube channel, I wasn't sure how many people used antennas. These are 2 articles, one's from Forbes, one's from the Wall Street Journal. Antennas reemerge as a legit player in TV business, and why TV antennas are making a comeback in the streaming age. So these are pretty big news organizations that are doing stories about free over-the-air TV making a comeback. Why is it making a comeback? It's a great alternative to expensive cable and satellite. For years, people thought their only options were cable and satellite or fuzzy analog TV that wasn't good in a lot of areas. They didn't realize that they can get all their local channels in high definition now. As I just said, provides dozens of free channels in high definition. And technology like network tuners in this day and age and DVRs enable easy access to local channels on all devices. So it's no longer the case where a person has to hardwire their TV and the antenna by coax. They can easily connect it to an HD home run or Tableau and access it wirelessly on all of their devices. So if they have Rokus or if they have, even on their smartphone, they can just be home, go on their iPhone and say, I want to watch, KXAN local news, and they're able to get it. And one thing about local TV that streaming services can't match is that it provides a connection to the community through local news and information. That's something that Netflix and YouTube can't match and will probably never match. So it's important to reach antenna viewers because about 20% of Americans use an antenna. That's a rough estimate. It varies, depending on specifically the data, and it varies depending on the market. It can be as low as 10% in a market, can be as high as 33 or 35%. Many first-time cord cutters don't pick up all local channels due to a bad antenna setup. So if you go on Amazon, type in HD antenna, the majority of them are really bad products from China because it's a long story short, a lot of Chinese companies manipulated the Amazon algorithm to the point their results come up first, and the good antennas are hidden like way down, pages down. So don't let your station lose viewers who cut the cord, because a lot of times people who set up antennas, if they don't get a certain local channel, yeah, it's possible they might say, oh, I'm going to stick to cable and satellite, but at some point they're going to say, no, I'm just not going to watch the station. If I don't get it, I don't get it. So here are some of the antennas. If you type in HD antenna on Amazon, these are the first ones that come up. And for those of you that might not know much about antennas, Let me just be clear, they are all very, very bad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, they're like a 0.5. The one at the bottom might be okay. I might consider it like, somewhat okay. But the problem is, if someone is looking for an antenna on Amazon, they're pretty much doomed because they're going to buy the first few products that they see. And you can tell the range claims are outrageous, like 940-mile range. Like that's pure false advertising. And I really wish the FTC would do something about this. But well, until they do, these Chinese companies just keep doing this, and it's ridiculous. And most of the reviews are fake. So those of you that are saying, oh, well, there's 5-star reviews, no, most of them are fake. So why antenna viewers don't pick up all local channels? There's very little information about antennas in general. For people who are seeking, an antenna or cutting the cord, there's not much information out there. They just think, let's go on Amazon and buy the first antenna we see. They go on the station website and there's just not really any information. Some of them find my YouTube channel, which is great, but for the most part, the average person has no idea. They purchase a junk antenna on Amazon thinking, oh, I bought, 200-mile range antenna. It's not getting all my stations. I guess an antenna won't work in my area. They also do one of a dozen things to mess up their reception. Most people will just plug in an antenna into their TV, put it on the wall somewhere and hope for the best. That's not the case. It has to be pointed correctly. It should be near a wall or window in the direction of the broadcast towers. It should be VHF capable. Sometimes you slap on amplifiers, which just makes things worse. And I just mentioned, they think they're getting all channels possible when cutting the cord with a 200-mile antenna. Not the case. So here's an example of what I see occasionally on station websites. Most don't have anything like this. This is MeTV, and it pretty much just says run a rescan. That doesn't help antenna viewers. If they have a bad antenna set up and it's not picking up a station, running a channel scan is not going to pick it up. And I see this time and time again whenever I do see the little station, the few stations that do have information, it just pretty much says run a rescan, and that just doesn't really do anything. That doesn't help. So one of the tips I have for anyone who has a TV station or operates a group of them is to, hold on a second, what am I saying? Provide help. Oh yeah, so there should be a section on the website that should link reception reports, like websites that people can use to analyze their reception to get an idea of what the signals are like. And the two big ones are the FCC DTV reception maps and rabbitears.info. The FCC DTV reception maps is a little more user-friendly, but rabbitears.info is more accurate. Each of them will give people an idea of what the signals are like. They type in their address, and it'll say either they're strong, they say, okay, that'll be easy. They're fair, where it means it might be a little challenge, and if they're weak, that means they have to really set up a good outdoor antenna. AntennaWeb.org is another one, but I don't recommend that one as much, mainly because it's very conservative with the results. There are many people who will go on it and it'll say no channels available when in reality they can get channels, and that kind of misleads people into not trying an antenna. Another good thing to do is to list some reception tips, which I will get into in the next few minutes, just information to help people maximize their antenna reception. And this is an important one that I just don't ever see except on local station in my area. They happen to do it, is links to some recommended antennas. If you put some good antenna models on your website, the viewers are more likely to succeed when they cut the cord as opposed to going on Amazon and just purchasing the first thing they see and it's just not good. So that's something important to do. And the last point is kind of optional. You're not obligated to do it, but it would help is if there was an email address or phone number that viewers could call or use to get in touch with the engineer and just kind of have some support. I'm sure the engineer of each local TV station understands free over the air and could probably give them some tips and ways to improve their reception. Speaking of reception tips, here are a few. Sub the antenna near a wall or window, ideally in the direction of the broadcast towers. As I said earlier, way too many people, they buy an antenna, their TV's in the middle of their living room, they connect the antenna to it and just throw it somewhere and hope for the best. In probably 90% of cases, maybe even more, that's not going to get all local stations. Try the antenna in different locations. I think some people understand this, but what they should really do is use a TV as a guide, is they should have their TV on tuned to the weakest channel, usually the VHF station in the market, and move it around until they find a spot where it's picked up. And there's a good chance if they find a spot where the VHF channel is picked up, the rest will come in pretty well. Only run a channel scan if all current channels are picked up so none are lost. This goes back to the whole run a rescan thing. that can actually cause problems. If someone has a TV connected to an antenna, and let's say they had channel 7 and they move it and they're not getting channel 7, they say, oh, well, I'll just run a rescan because that's what the website said. You know what it's going to do? It's going to remove channel 7 from the list. And then they have to start, it begins the process of what I call endless rescans and hoping for the best. So they move the antenna here, run a channel scan, hope for the best. Move it here, run a channel scan, hope for the best, and just keep doing it. And they might not ever get it back if they do that. Obviously, make sure the antenna is a decent model. It's important to have a decent antenna, and they're not even that expensive. The Channel Master Flat Antenna is only about 25 bucks. It's about the same price as some of the bad antennas on Amazon, but it works pretty well, and it even picks up VHF stations in certain areas. So here's a list of some of the best antennas. I'm going to reveal some secrets to you guys, and I do actually have this on my YouTube channel. In every video, I have a link to the best antennas. This is based on me testing out over 100 antennas, which ones perform the best. For indoor antennas, the best ones were the Channel Master Flat Antenna and the Clearstream antenna. So Clearstream, they sell most of their antennas direct technically. They sell their Clearstream antennas at Walmart, and they have like the 2V, the 2 Max, the Max V, a whole bunch of different ones. They look like figure 8s. They work pretty well. Channel Master Flat Antenna is like a small flat antenna. Again, it works very well. Small outdoor antennas. This is good for fair to strong signal areas. Probably where the majority of your customers or your viewers are located is the Televista Nova Mix, RCA Compact Yagi, and Clearstream 2V. These are decent small directional antennas that, when set up correctly, they will get all the local channels much better than anything at Walmart and most of what's on Amazon. And medium outdoor antenna, this is more for like the fair signal area, probably like between 30 to 45 miles from broadcast towers, where the signals are a little bit weaker, but they're not super weak. The Televis Lips Mix is a good option because it is a good happy medium. It's not too big, not too small, and it usually does pretty well. Now for people in rural areas, the Televis LR Mix is probably one of the best. I see everyone got their phones out, I appreciate that. The Televis LR Mix is probably hands down the best long-range outdoor antenna on the market for 3 reasons. It's not just the fact that, oh, I like Televis because for some reason I'm just biased towards them. It's actually based on data. So the Televis long-range mix, there are a lot of large outdoor antennas that work well, but the Televis long-range mix, the difference is it has a built-in preamplifier with automatic gain control. So that eliminates the issue of a consumer setting up an external preamplifier and possibly over-amplifying their signal, not connecting it correctly. The automatic gain control makes it so that it doesn't over-amplify and blow out a weaker station that's on an adjacent frequency. It also has a 5G filter and FM traps, so you don't have to worry about interference from nearby cell towers. That's a problem in a lot of areas, is if you have an antenna connected and you live near a 5G tower, that can interfere with some upper and even lower UHF channels.
Dave, I'm looking at this, we're not seeing any attic.
I love it when people ask me this question, what's the best attic antenna? You can put any antenna in the attic. It's better to put like an outdoor antenna in the attic than some attic antenna that's marketed as an attic antenna. But to answer your question, probably the Televis Lips Mix I like for the attic because it's not too massive. If you get a large antenna like the Televis LR Mix, it's going to be hard to move around. And the key to success, I'm glad you asked this question, the key to success of setting up an antenna in the attic is to try it in different locations with a TV as a guide. I spent up to a half hour to 45 minutes in an attic saying, okay, channel 6 isn't coming in, move it here. 6 comes in, 10 doesn't come in, you just have to move it around as a guide, because the problem with, not a problem with attics, but in general, the building material of a roof is going to impact the signal in certain locations that our eyes can't see. Our eyes cannot see how the signals are penetrating through the building material, but a TV and signal meter can. So I would say in general, the 2V, the Clearstream, one of the smaller antennas, or one of the medium-sized antennas are good for the attic. Large one is probably just too much, and the indoor ones are probably too small. It's a great question, though. The VHF disadvantage. This is something I want to explain about TV stations that broadcast on RF channels 2 through 13. VHF, the VHF band for digital TV in the digital era, it's ironic because it kind of reversed like back in the analog era. VHF was great. Now it's actually the opposite. VHF is noisy and prone to interference from a whole bunch of things. LED lights, electrical systems, power lines, you name it. It's prone to interference. It doesn't penetrate well through building material like UHF. So if you're even if you're close to a broadcast tower, if you're inside the house and you're setting up an indoor antenna, the VHF signals, because they have longer wavelengths, they aren't going to penetrate through the building material as well. It doesn't mean you can't pick them up, but in almost every situation where someone is not picking up a certain station in their market, it's a VHF station. Many people don't have VHF capable antennas. Those really small itty bitty antennas I showed a few slides ago and those flat antennas don't pick up VHF well at all. The Channel Master Flat 10, to my surprise, does, probably because it has a good quality coax cable and just the way it's designed happens to pick it up all right. But that really causes a lot of problems for people. And in some locations, when the signals are kind of on the fair side and someone can kind of get by with an indoor antenna and get the UHF channels that all right, VHF ain't coming through. I've seen this all the time in apartment complexes where someone might not face the broadcast towers, or there's certain windows that the apartment complex built that are pretty thick, and the VHF channels just don't penetrate through. These are some of the VHF channels in Texas. I went through and I got them all. So if you see your station on the list here, you should be aware of the VHF disadvantage that your broadcast signal is potentially not reaching as many people as the competitors just because of the nature of VHF. You guys aren't doing anything wrong. I personally kind of blame the FCC for selling too much TV spectrum to cell phone companies and limiting the power outputs, but that's a rant I'll go on another time. So there are ways to mitigate VHF reception issues if you broadcast on the VHF band. One of the more common ways to mitigate it is to apply for a power increase with the FCC. I think a lot of stations across the country have done this, but some have not. Like the 2 stations in my area that are on the VHF band are still operating at about 30 kilowatts ERP, the same power they were authorized back in 2005. They could probably get a power increase if they applied for one. Now, one of the issues that sometimes happens when trying to apply for a power increase is the FCC might deny it because of interference from a co-channel in the same market. So if you're on RF channel 11 and there's an RF channel 11 120 miles away, the fear is that people in between might be pushed out of one or the other. But in a lot of cases I found in that situation, they might not have good reception anyway, and it's good to reach out to the other station to apply or get a mutual interference agreement going so both of you guys can, or both stations can reach the end market viewers better. Yeah, some fringe viewers might be left out, a handful, but if you're adding a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand within the city, that's actually a net plus. This is a suggestion that I've seen in certain markets. This is simulcast on a sister station. So if you operate 2 TV stations in a market, one's on VHF and one's on UHF, it's a good idea to simulcast the VHF on the UHF signal, even if it's in standard definition, because at least it's reaching people. And in some locations, simulcasting on a low-powered UHF station in the market actually works pretty well. Average person might think, oh, that doesn't make sense. It's a low-powered UHF station. How could it be better than a high-powered VHF station? It's because of the nature of VHF signals. WBBM in Chicago, the CBS affiliate, they had a channel sharing agreement with a low-powered UHF station in the market for years because they knew that their VHF signal was not penetrating through the building material of a lot of people who use indoor antennas in the market. So definitely doing something instead of just kind of sitting around. You got to definitely work on things. So another thing that could benefit a lot of antenna viewers is ATSC 3.0, the new over-the-air TV standard. For those of you not aware, ATSC 1.0 is the current TV standard that was developed in the 90s. Most TV stations use it. ATSC 3.0 is the next generation over-the-air TV standard. It has a lot of benefits. First is that it uses the more robust CUFDM modulation. That's a very technical term, but what it means is that it's more resistant against multipath from buildings and trees. So multipath interference on the current TV standard, trees blowing in the wind, signals reflecting off tall buildings, cars driving by, all of those disrupt viewers watching a TV station. And ATSC 3.0 pretty much solves that, at least from that situation. You'd also use flexible PLPs like 64 QAM, 16 QAM, and QPSK. I'm going to explain them in just a bit. and single frequency networks to expand coverage. A cool thing about ATSC 3.0, and this is potentially down the road, it's not anytime soon, is that a station can operate single frequency networks if they operate on RF channel 19. It's a lot easier to have a fill-in translator somewhere where the signal is not good, as opposed to 1.0 where it's pretty tricky to say the least. Again, we are in the very early stages of ATSC 3.0, so a lot of things I'm going to say is kind of like just in the brainstorming phase. There are some issues that definitely need to be resolved for ATSC 3.0 to succeed, so I'm going to get into that next. So currently, this map, and I got to give credit to Gates Air, this is a presentation that they made for the NAB show a few years back. It's available online. If you just search ATSC 3.0 coverage maps or PLPs, you'll find it. But this kind of represents the average 1.0 signal. The SNR needed to decode it is about 15. So just think of 15 dB, that's what you need to decode it. And in this map, it covers about 41% of the total map area. And that's just what it is. You can't change it. With ATSC 3.0, one of the PLPs you can switch to that would give you the same amount of bandwidth is 64 QAM. And in this case, it can be decoded at an SNR of about 11.55. So someone who may not be picking up a 1.0 signal is now able to pick up the 3.0 signal, and it goes from about 41% to 48% of the total map area. But it doesn't stop there. There's other options. 16 QAM, and again, the bandwidth is reduced a little bit, but I have the feeling that in the future, more advanced codecs will make it so that stations don't have to get rid of subchannels for this. This can be decoded at about 7 dB. This is really, really, really good. And again, covers about 53% of the total map area, up from 41%. So you go from 41% to 53. But wait, there's more. QPSK. This one can be decoded all the way down to 1.97 dB. And yes, again, the bandwidth is limited, but if you're a VHF station, you could potentially have your main .1 channel on a portion of this layer, and it basically will give you comparable coverage to the UHF stations in the market, if not better. And again, we go from 41% to 60%. Really cool. 3.0 gives the stations the options on what they want to do, balance bandwidth versus coverage. And for some stations that might be in a more mountainous area, the coverage is really going to help some of their viewers. So I tested, this is back in 2021, I tested ATSC 3.0 when it launched in Pittsburgh. And two things that I really took away from it was I was about 80 miles away from Pittsburgh when I was traveling there, and I got out a small outdoor antenna, put it on my car, ran a channel scan just to see what was picked up. None of the 1.0 channels were picked up, so I pointed towards Pittsburgh, run the channel scan. Not a single 1.0 channel was picked up, and I was like, well, I must be out of range. But then I looked, and a 3.0 signal was picked up that was using a certain PLP. And again, this is about 80 miles away, using a small outdoor antenna just pointing towards Pittsburgh. I didn't have to really adjust it. And then this diagram, you can look up this YouTube video too if you type in ATSC 3.0 Pittsburgh. I drove around Pittsburgh with the same antenna connected to a 1.0 tuner and the other connected to a 3.0 tuner. And the 3.0 signal stayed rock solid, even in a portion of the pit tunnel, whatever tunnel's in Pittsburgh, while the 1.0 signal was breaking up and it barely came in. It only came in when my car was completely stopped. And that kind of represents the changes in the signal path and multipath interference that people get. The average consumer just having an indoor antenna in their house and the signals are bouncing all off the walls, or a car goes by, or they have a lot of trees. I mean, trees exist and they're going to impact reception. It's great to know that there's a new advanced standard that can prevent that, so it's absolutely great. ATSC 3.0, also known as Next Gen TV, is available in pretty much these markets. I think the purple dots mean that they're coming on there, they're working on it. But for the most part, it's in a lot of markets. I want to say it's like between 60 to 70% of TV markets now have it. And what they have set up is it's a lighthouse signal, so it's one station in the market, converts completely to 3.0, carries most, if not all, of the major networks, and then the networks that were displaced from the 3.0 signal get carried by other stations in the market. So TV viewers, antenna viewers don't really miss out on anything. They just have an extra signal to play around with. This is Austin, Texas right now. The 3.0 signal, it's a little bit different. It's carried on some low-powered stations, so it might not be as good as if it was a high-powered station, but I think in the case of Fox, which to my understanding broadcasts on the VHF band, if they're carried on a 3.0 signal, a lighthouse signal in the UHF band, they're now able to reach some viewers that weren't able to get them in on the VHF band, assuming that they have a 3.0 tuner. There is one problem though. DRM encryption that has been put on KXAN and a lot of stations across the country. It can't be decoded by the HD Home Run, which is a very good network-based tuner that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. It's accessible on all the consumer's devices: iOS, Android, Windows, Apple, Xbox, Amazon Fire Stick. If someone has a network tuner, which a lot of viewers are going to because they don't want to directly connect an antenna to all the TVs in their house, frankly they shouldn't be messing with wires, the HD Home Run is a good option, and currently DRM encryption doesn't allow it to decode the signal. It's also problematic on certain TVs. I originally wasn't going to include this in the presentation, but one of the exhibitors I talked to just this morning said, I have a next-gen enabled TV and I can no longer access the 3.0 signals because of DRM. It's a next-gen certified tuner. It should decode it, but it doesn't. And I'm telling you guys not so much to whine and complain about it, but just so that you guys have an understanding that if your station has DRM encrypted or enabled DRM encryption, you might be locking out a few viewers if they can't get the 3.0 signal. So here's another screenshot. I had several viewers send different brands, all had issues picking up the 3.0 DRM encrypted channels, which I'm told by the people in charge, oh no, there's no problems, it's totally fine. My viewers say otherwise. This is a post from AVS Forum just a few days ago, or maybe a week ago. Went to watch the Olympics today on my LG G3, and get this, I hate ATSC 3.0. This is a problem because if consumers are not happy and it's hassling them, this TV standard is potentially, the adoption rate is going to slow down and it might even fail, because I think any technology, in order for it to succeed, consumers need to adopt it. They need to have a reason to adopt it. They need to be excited. They need to be able to purchase units. And if it's not able to be decoded on, the HD Home Run, which is a very popular unit, and several others, it's going to be a problem. Any viewer who's picking up a next-gen signal should be able to see this. They should not see this. So that's a problem. If they're picking up a signal, so KXAN, I'm picking on them, they actually have DRM encryption on. So if someone's picking up their signal and they have a 3.0 TV, they get this. Yes, they can still get it in 1.0, but as I said, in some cases, the 3.0 signal is stronger. They purchase a new TV, an HD Home Run, specifically for the reason of better reception. Most don't care about the better picture quality, and then they get this. So it's not good. And to be clear, I am not anti-ATSC 3.0. I think it's a very great TV standard. I showed you earlier in the other slides just how much more robust it is. I think it has a lot of potential to help broadcasters, but this problem with DRM really has to be addressed and fixed. It can't just be blamed on the consumers, because if the consumers are blamed, they're not going to really pursue this thing. They're just going to stick with their current equipment and just not adopt it. And again, it goes back to the maps. The coverage maps going from 41% to 60%. I would love if broadcasters had this ability to switch from, okay, if we don't have as good coverage, yeah, we can sacrifice some of the bandwidth and add additional coverage. That's amazing. It's really unbelievable that a TV standard is able to change different, I don't know how to put it into words, but make it so that it can be picked up at a lower noise floor, so that way it's a stronger signal. So anyway, I'm moving on from my whole DRM rant. Promoting over-the-air TV, in my opinion, is important for broadcast TV's future, because broadcast TV is losing an audience to streaming services. It's very convenient for people to just download an app and watch things on demand. It's not as convenient for someone to directly connect an antenna to all the TVs in their house. I feel that gateway tuners are definitely helpful to people cutting the cord, and helpful for broadcasters to continue reaching people who have streaming services, because the thing about gateway tuners is they are integrated directly in the streaming devices that people use to access Netflix. So if I have a Roku and I have a network tuner like the HD Home Run or Tableau, I am able to integrate all my local channels in that. I don't have to switch inputs. I don't have to run a coax cable from there. I think that's important for keeping over-the-air TV relevant in a streaming era. No marketing, this is a big problem. There's no marketing of free over-the-air TV. Most people don't know it's an option. And I see this really among my age. So every time someone meets me in public or in a social setting, I tell them I'm a YouTuber and they get all excited. They're like, oh, you're a YouTuber, that's so cool. What do you talk about? I'm like, I talk about free over-the-air TV. And they're like, what? And I go, well, I talk about antennas. They're like, what? And I have to explain it to them. And I'd say out of the last 50 people I talked to, only one person knew that free over-the-air TV is an option. And that's really a problem when the younger generation doesn't know you exist. In fact, that they could easily get you with a $30 or $50 antenna and be more inclined to watch the local news and all the syndicated programs that local TV stations carry. So there definitely has to be more marketing. I understand that stations don't want to put it on the air because of retransmission fees that come in, but there should be at the very least something on the website. Very few millennials and Gen Z watch live TV the way that most of us do who are in the industry. They like Netflix, they like TikTok. There was a great presentation yesterday, I forget who did it, that talked about where millennials and Gen Z are, that they are using TikTok, they are using Instagram. And I definitely suggest you refer to the slides if they are emailed to you and you weren't at that presentation. It gives you a good idea on where the younger viewers are and how to reach them, because at the very least, you can at least post your content on those platforms and kind of bait them in. Bait them in, say, show a local news story, show something fun, they see it, and mention, oh, you can get us with this antenna, and then they hook it up to their TV, and next thing you know, they're watching you every night. If made aware of over-the-air TV, more people would be inclined to watch than not at all. As I said, this is a problem when most people don't know about free over-the-air TV and they're cutting the cord from cable and satellite, or they never had cable and satellite. They're not watching the medium. They're just not watching at all. So it's better to have them as a viewer than not at all by promoting free over-the-air TV. And I got to give a shout out to Sinclair, because I noticed Sinclair does a pretty good job not only maximizing their broadcast signals, but also promoting. I even saw, and this kind of surprised me, I saw a retransmission dispute on a TV station in my area, and they had mentioned you can still get us on these cable satellite providers, and as always, free with an antenna. I was like, that's right, because the other companies aren't saying anything about it. So in conclusion, free over-the-air TV is making a comeback, and definitely do some things to make sure that your station is picked up by TVs in the market. You don't want to be that one or two station that isn't picked up and then the antenna viewers aren't watching you. Provide tips for antenna viewers on the website. I had the one slide that mentioned to just put a list of antennas, some reception tips, the reception websites, just something so that viewers can find you if they're not able to get you from the antenna right away. And promote and market free over-the-air TV so that's known as an option among younger audiences. I keep saying this, but it's like the younger generation, free over-the-air TV is so great. It's underrated. It's a whole bunch of free channels and high definition, also live sporting events that most people my age watch, and very few know it exists. This poses a problem in 10, 20, 30 years. What's going to happen when the current viewers of over-the-air TV age out and unfortunately leave this earth? We don't live forever yet. But it's one of those things where it concerns me because I love this industry, I love seeing it thriving, and I'm worried about the future. So that's what I got to say about that. At this time, if the slide works, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Yes?
If you have TV stations where you don't have antennas in the same locations, like my market, we have two of the stations are in a metro area, and two of the stations are in a rural area on the other side of the river in Oklahoma. So they're not located in the general areas of each other. Mm-hmm. Is there a suggestion other than just putting an aerial with a rotator on it?
Yeah, I've seen the situation. A lot of markets are in the same situation. San Francisco is one. I forget what else, but in the situation, what I usually do is, it depends on the reception report. Usually what would have to be done is to see what signal is stronger than the other, and pointing an antenna that isn't too directional towards the somewhat weaker signal will usually pick up the stronger signal from the back. And I'd say that works in probably between like 50 to 60% of cases, maybe even more, where if you can understand the gain pattern of an antenna and just where the signals are coming in, how strong they are, and how they're picked up by the antenna, that can be done. In that case, what I usually recommend is a smaller antenna because they're not as directional. So the Televista Nova Mix and the Televista Ellipse Mix, and pretty much using a TV as a guide when setting up, saying, okay, I can get channel 7, but I can't get channel 6 or whatever. And looking at channel 6, rotating it until channel 6 comes in, say, do I still get channel 7? And in most cases, you're able to get both stations, but if you can't, the other option is Televis has a new thing called the Televis SmartCom, and it's an antenna combiner that actually filters out each antenna, and it's a true combiner because it doesn't have the interference you'd get from a backwards combiner. That's a good option for if someone ends up in that situation. But I'd say for the most part, use the TV or signal meter as a guide to try the different directions and find a spot where they're all picked up. Yes?
Is there a good and relatively inexpensive signal strength meter to use, like when aiming an antenna? Right?
Yes.
Than seeing if you get picture or no picture on the TV.
Oh yeah. In fact, it's only about $30 and it's carried at Walmart. The digital converter boxes that people think about in the digital era, 2009, the new ones that are basically mass produced from China, they have a signal meter that comes up if you press the info button twice. And it shows a percentage, which is great. It'll say 40%, 50%, and it constantly moves. It's called, if you go on Amazon, it's called the Mediasonic Home Works. But if you go to local Walmart, you'll see the same thing marketed under Core Innovations. And you look at it and you think it's just a converter box DVR thing. No, it's a signal meter, because if you press that info button, that signal meter comes up. And I think that's one of the most critical aspects to getting the best reception possible, is using a signal meter and seeing what you're getting, because the average TV is not going to show you what you're getting. It can look crystal clear, but it may only be a portion of a signal that drops in and out. Yes?
So going back to DRM, isn't that more also an issue with the receiver not being certified by NextGen? Because I've got AETH receiver and it cuts through DRM encryption. Versus the Zapper does not have it. They keep promising it, and it's like go back to several set-top manufacturers. Some work well, some don't.
Yeah, so the Zapper box actually has been DRM certified for probably a good 5 or 6 months, maybe longer. But you are correct, that is potentially an issue with the manufacturer not getting certified for DRM. But the problem is a network tuner like the HD Home Run, it's almost, I don't want to say it's impossible for them to get certified, but it's really hard because in order to decode DRM encryption, my understanding is that Google Widevine is the agent that is used. And it's currently only supported on a handful of devices and is not supported on iOS, which 60% of Americans have an iPhone. I think that's kind of a problem. My fear is yeah, you're correct. If a receiver gets certified, there shouldn't be problems, but my fear is that with DRM implemented, it's going to make it harder for manufacturers to get certified. It's going to inconvenience consumers, which is the slides I've shown among people who have next-gen certified, DRM certified TVs that are still having issues. And yes, it will probably get resolved at some point, but it's still a discussion that really should be talked about. It shouldn't just be DRM or else. No, that's the way it is. Because if you push it on people and people don't want it, and it's causing problems, it's going to cause problems with adoption of the standard, my opinion at least. My hope is that the industry hears the concerns I brought up in my presentation. Free over-the-air TV needs to be better promoted to ensure consumers continue to watch their local channels in a streaming era. Otherwise, broadcast TV will continue to lose its audience and end up irrelevant in a few decades. The cheerleaders pushing ATSC 3.0 also need to understand that DRM encryption is really inconveniencing consumers and slowing down adoption of this new TV standard. Stop blaming manufacturers and consumers for the mess that you all caused. Take responsibility and fix the issues associated with DRM encryption. Network tuners like the HD Home Run are critical to ensure that local broadcast TV is accessible on all devices that consumers use. People are done switching inputs on their remote to access channels from an antenna. They want them integrated directly into streaming devices that they use or a smart TV. If ATSC 3.0 can't offer this option on all devices because both the tuner and streaming device must be DRM certified, it's a step backwards and frankly deserves to fail. That's about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed my presentation and that it helps TV stations provide better information on how people can get their channels free over the air so that they reach more viewers. An additional thanks to everyone who supports me directly on Patreon or as a member of my YouTube channel. If my videos helped you cut the cord, or if you just think they're cool and would like to help support them while gaining exclusive perks, visit patreon.com/antennaman. Click the join button in this video, and you can also click the thanks button. Be sure to like my Facebook page at facebook.com/antennamanpa or sign up to my email list linked in the description below. Stay tuned to my YouTube channel for more cord cutting and antenna related videos, and have an awesome day.